Number 5, Carla. Ghost of a Dream, Carla.
15-year-old Baldini, single cast of a Caribbean cast.
Hi, Carla.
Alright, so I'm actually going to ask all y'all what you think. All y'all.
Thanks for makes me feel at home. Yeah.
Alright, I have a funny story, but it's awfully long.
You're not in the light.
This way? Better? Better?
No. I'll fix it. I'll fix it.
Someone fix the light. Alright.
We want to show off your beauty.
No, you just want to prove it.
We need two.
We need more light. We definitely need some more light.
Oh, that's true. I did totally show my boobies. Alright, so the ecstatic pessimist is, in the interest of full disclosure, it's like 12 pages long, and if I read it, it's going to be 25 minutes. So that's a heavy investment. I appreciate that. But it's more entertaining than the one I'm going to read, which is also very beautiful. It's from a story called Ghost of a Dream. It was published several times, actually. And it's shorter. It's from South Africa. It's sort of sad and romantic. So, I don't know. Your pick. First or second? Second? I practiced that one. Okay.
All right.
The shorter. Shorter. Everyone. It's okay to be like shorter is better. Because I'll just read the other one next time. Alright, so the backstory on this particular story, it's called Ghost of a Dream. It's set in South Africa. And the narrator is Daphne, and she's a woman who was driving to a U2 concert in Joburg one day, and she was subjected to a very violent hijacking. And because crime in South Africa is so prevalent and just really not something that people worry about anymore, I mean, how many family members we can mention who've either been shot or robbed, where someone will show up at your house with a U-Haul and tie you to a chair and not rape you if you're lucky, and just unpack your entire house, and you will have been robbed, and the worse for the wear. And so what happens to Daphne is she has this sort of harrowing experience, and then she goes to see her friends, and because everyone is so blasé about the level of violence in their lives, that no one really gives a shit. Like, not because they're callous, but just because everyone's like busy with their own stuff. So she's engaged to a guy called Charles, and this is the start of like the last part of the story. The next day, Charles and I held our engagement party at a downtown Johannesburg loft. The party was rowdy and overcrowded, and someone called someone to bring something over. The dealer was pitch black, had a scar on one cheek, and palms so snow white that when he extended a baggy palm up, the coat was almost invisible against his skin. My memories had not developed according to names or faces. It was hands, I remembered. The scar, his name, Nokasana, even the faint acrid smell he gave off did not stir me, but those hands moved something deep inside me. I might have seen them at another party, handing out baggies, taking in moolah. I might have seen them at a club or a gallery opening, but then I would not be searching my memory right now. I asked Charles about him, and he said he had come recommended by a friend of a friend. Shelley, over there, next to the maid, waiter, whatever, next to the cactus. When Charles said maid, I realized where I'd seen this man before. It had been a long time ago, when I was 7 or 8. My family had lived in a large house in the hills above Sandton, And we had a live-in maid, Louisa, who slept in a drab cement building out back near the pool and only returned to her own family on weekends. It was early afternoon on a winter day. The sun shone high and thin, but felt warm between my shoulder blades. I clasped a stick gun, pretending to stalk a boar in the bushes near the pool's fence, when my father appeared, clutching a boy by the arm. The boy's feet dangled in the air. My father shouted something about not wanting a bloody moon creeping around his property. Was he a mommy's boy then? Weekends not good enough, eh? The boy broke away and back towards his mother's room, palms facing up, beseeching. The man grabbed the boy by the wrists, my father grabbed the boy by the wrists and gave him a solid thrashing. The hands had aged, but there was no doubt that the dealer who'd come to my house to get me and my friends high was the boy who had been punished for wanting to be with his mother. Those days seemed so distant now, and that world of apartheid so far gone. My parents were dead, and I'd lost track of Louisa, and I couldn't count on Charles's discretion. I couldn't tell anyone. And if I told the story now, wiping coke dust off the mirror, it would have been socially awkward and frankly, unforgivable. The people in my living room seemed united in their unrelenting pursuit of pleasure, and in it, united in their unrelenting pretense that there had never been a separation of black and white, never been any apartheid, only this new rainbow nation. So here now with the tuxedoed guests and staff, the DJ mixing subtle lounge music, and the champagne corks popping, the memory of this man seemed both tasteless and tragic. The dealer left after completing his rounds, but the encounter and the drugs left me feeling amped. I was feeling unsettled when the doorbell rang. There's more. Expecting to see someone from the guest list, I was surprised to see a broad, khaki-clad shoulders and tanned arms and legs. The man stood with his back to me for a moment before he turned. He was wearing shorts and a shirt with the logo of a game farm embroidered on the pocket. He was scowling and handsome, younger than me. When his gaze met mine, I experienced the same sensation I had long ago when I had stood on the red carpet in my shimmering white dress with my arm looped through my father's. I forgot to mention this. So her husband had also been murdered in a crime, so she's kind of getting over that, and then she's hijacked, and then, yeah, I said don't pick the sad story. All right, so looped through my father's. You're new, I said, and tugged the sleeve of my charcoal slip wrap dress. Ugh, sorry to bug you, hey. The man stuck out the most beautiful, strong, nut brown hand, just like Rich's. But I'm supposed to meet my chummies here. His hand was tanned, and the roughness of his skin against my soft palm set my heart a clang. Be the father of my children. Haven't heard that one before, he grinned, and when his face relaxed, I noticed fine white lines within the crow's feet where the sun did not reach. He was older than he first appeared. You've been outside, I said. Yeah, not from the city, not on your life. Ever been hijacked? I opened the door wide. Have you? I lead the way across the loft towards the master bedroom in the back. We walk into the bedroom where, on a king-size bed, two women lay kissing, one straddling the other, thrusting. On the bedside table, next to a pocket mirror with a credit card lying on top, stood a silver-framed photograph of me as a child on my grandparents' farm. Pigtailed, dressed in a blue Nibeli wraparound skirt and a white peasant shirt, I stood in the felt in front of a burnt-out fire pit, shielding the sun from my eyes. A smirk played across my lips, as though, Rich used to say, I'd just telling a smutty joke I did not yet fully understand. Rich had loved that photo. Sometimes I could still not believe he was gone, shot through the heart. Every time I thought about that incident, I gave a wan smile because I knew Rich would find it amusing to be remembered as a Bon Jovi lyric. Shot through the heart, and you're to blame. I knew I wasn't, but what if I had been home on the night of the robbery? What if I had opened the front door instead? I turned the knob on the bathroom door and lead the man in. The slate was cold beneath my feet. I had kicked off my heels after my third champagne, and the fragrance of ginger body lotion still lingered in the air. I turned and faced the man. I took his hand and placed it against my breast. My nipples hardened and I leaned into him. He pulled his hand away and a thread of silk clung to the rough skin of his palm, stretching, then snapped. I tried to kiss him. He smelled of peppermints and sweat, and I imagined his skin would be covered by a fine film of dust I could dip my tongue into and make polka dots across. The corners of our mouths touched, and someone rapped on the door and said, "Anyone in there?" Charles and I cleared the last of the party debris in silence. I collected floating cigarette butts, empty Evian bottles, a blood-speckled tissue, and the man entered my thoughts, moving with abandon across my mind and drowning the white noise of my brain. With his image, his hands had awakened me. I will live with him in the wild. I will rise before daybreak and boil water to make sweet rooibos tea and take it to him in bed. I will roam the plains and learn to cook flapjacks on an open fire. We will have 4 children, Samuel, Joe Jr., Paulie, and finally, thankfully, Estelle. The children will scream in joy at the brilliance of a diving kingfisher. The boys will tie their baby sister to the trellis, saying, "You're an Injun," and she will weep and ask, "Why can't I be a cowboy too?" They will teach her how to shoot wild rabbits, and later to shoot tequila, and later still they will at first threaten to bring out their guns when her suitors come to call. Sam will go to university and marry a Xhosa girl named Anelli. That they will explain one night over lemon meringue means enough. Joe Jr. will remain on the land and start to drink brandy straight from the bottle. And Paulie, well, Paulie likes to sew and we will pay for a top-notch fashion design school in Durban. And Estelle? Estelle will learn to hold hands, will learn to kiss with her lips parted, will learn to make love, will learn to fuck, will learn to fuck up. And early one evening, when the birds fly to a waterhole in the V overhead, I will put my now calloused hands in his, and we will walk side by side down the rocky path to the banks of the glistening river. Then it is light. It is daybreak over Johannesburg, and the ghost of a dream hangs by its pretty white neck.
I got a question.
It won't reach.
Okay. I want to ask you a question, that's all.
That's wonderful.
Okay, so this is from Ghost of the Dream. Is that published?
This story has been published. I have a lot of stories like this. I'm gonna bring out my own book.
And do you have a publication list?
I mean, I could put one on.
On the,
Yeah.
all right.
All right.
Tell me when you get it up. All right. Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
Thanks. This guy's.
They're questions. I was trained to ask questions. That's just the way it is. If I don't know something, I ask questions.
Thank you. My hands are shaking.